The Kidnapped Bride. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing story which resonates with love, courage, resilience, and sacrifice. It is about an abducted Christian bride who was stolen by Muslim invaders from South Sudan and sold as a slave in Western Sudan. It has been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on similar happenings which occurred in southern and western Sudan. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 36. Eating the Forbidden Apple from the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil. So far, no one has been paid for his dangerous work in this bloody struggle between sheep and wolves, except one lucky man of Baramilo, our brother Tia. On the day he received 1 billion Sudanese pounds in cash from the two lovers Malwal and Olivia, he quit his disgusting job, abandoned his tomb-like hut, and left the city where he was isolated and treated as an outcast, a subhuman, a criminal, and a worthless, despicable black slave. He traveled to his promised land flowing with milk and honey in the eastern region of Sudan, the beautiful city of Kassala. For him, it is better than any city in a western country, full of easy money and lasting happiness. Unbelievably, our brother Tia has abandoned his name, which was stigmatized by crime and shame. When someone on the train asked him what his name was, he said his name was Abdullah Mira. Abdullah was the name of the judge who gave him his name Tia, before sending him to the death concentration camp of Central Shala prison, and Mira was the foreman of Baramilo workers, the tractor driver of the night train attached to a trailer that was always filled with disgusting human excrement and urine. According to Mr. Tia's limited understanding of life, these two citizens are the most powerful human beings he has ever met. The first can send people to prison for life or to the gallows to be hanged to death, and the second can fire people from work or incite other workers to beat and kill him. In any case, the newborn man Abdullah Mira arrived in the bright city of Kassala, after a 4-day train journey from the remotest city in West Darfur province to his new paradise in the eastern region of Sudan. The first thing our dear brother, Mr. Abdullah Mira, did in the beautiful city of Kassala was to rent a modest place and open a home restaurant. In his restaurant, he specialized in cooking what drunkards in Sudan call the smiley, meaning the smiling face of a slaughtered animal. It is the cooked head of a sheep or goat. Throughout Sudan, drunkards love nothing more than to eat the heads, legs and ears of sheep and goat. The heads, ears and legs are cooked like roasted meat, and soup is prepared from the legs, which is called trotters or kawarie. Within a few months, Mr. Mira's restaurant became famous, and our beloved brother Abdullah achieved good fortune. Abdullah Mira's dream soon came true. He married a beautiful, poor Eritrean refugee girl from Wad Sharafi refugee camp on the outskirts of Kassala, and he had sons and daughters with her. The happy-go-lucky Eritrean refugee girl who married him is known as Ababa bint Asmara, which means daughter of the beautiful flower from the city of Asmara, the capital of Eritrea. Their children all went to school, and none of them inherited the disgusting, abhorring former Baramilo profession of their father Tia, who was an outcast, a prison jumper, and a man who had lost his shadow. This is the successful conclusion for the former outcast Baramilo man, our brother Tia, who became the owner of a large and famous restaurant, changed his name to Abdullah Mira, and married Zara bint Asmara. But when the Dinka lover Malwal and his Azanda beloved Olivia met again in the city of El Fasher, and revealed to each other the results of their research, they found themselves facing a new insurmountable problem. What's next? Malwell is the one who begins to doubt the existence of his missing bride. He concluded that Ian most likely died with her family on that fateful day. The Azanda girl, Olivia, reluctantly accepted his conclusion. She wanted to continue searching for the missing Dinka bride, Ian, but her American lover, Malwell, opposed her proposal. "What's our next step?" the pretty girl Olivia asked. Malwell answered as he gathered his personal belongings into his small bag. "We have to leave this cursed city and go somewhere else in South Sudan." "What about your trip to the United States?" Olivia has difficulty communicating. She continued, "You should go home." Malwell's hands are still busy arranging his luggage. "And what about you, my dear Olivia? Where are you going?" "I am a free girl, like a bird in the sky. I can fly anywhere, land, build my nest, and rest." Olivia said those words while trying to smile. "And who is the lucky bird who will share this nest with you and enjoy your love forever?" Malwell realized that this question mattered greatly to him. "God knows," Olivia said sheepishly, looking at him from under lowered eyelashes. Malwell had a gleam in his eyes and stared at her for a few moments. Finally he said, "Remember, you told me one day in the jungle that God created an Adam for every Eve." Olivia found herself trapped by her own words. She covered her beautiful eyes with long fingers and laughed. She asked while still laughing, "Who is this, Adam?" "His name is Malwell, my friend Olivia." Then the tall, handsome Dinka boy approached his beautiful Azanda girlfriend and extended his hand, begging her to be accepted as her life partner while on his knees. "Yes, Olivia, you have become my everything. I didn't know what love really was until I met you in the woods." "Oh Malwell," breathed Olivia, still covering her face with her hands, "you are a married man. How can I think of marrying you, when we are not yet sure whether your missing Dinka bride, Ian, is alive or dead?" Malwell spoke sweetly and his heart was full of love. "We did what we could do. There is nothing else left for us to do in this country to the evil Arab Muslim jinn." The lover wished his beloved would look at him before answering his question. As if she heard his thoughts, Olivia opened her eyes, looked directly at him, and asked, "What would we do if one day we found out that your kidnapped Dinka bride, Ian, was still alive?" She said this with her big, beautiful eyes full of unshed tears. "Olivia, we are in love, and there is nothing that can stop us from being together as husband and wife." Then the Dinka boy extended the Azanda girl's right hand and caressed it with both his thumbs. Olivia lifted Malwell's chin with her other hand. "You did not answer my question." "I don't have an answer to your question." Malwell felt like he might explode, full of joy. "Right. I don't have an answer except my deep love for you." Olivia spoke softly, almost touching Malwell's face with hers. "I love you, Olivia," Malwell said and pressed his lips to hers. To cut a long story short, the intimate lovers Malwell and Olivia were married a week later. They spent their first wedding night in one of the beautiful hotels in El Fasher City, before traveling to another place to spend their honeymoon. Olivia's lifelong dream is to see the famous and picturesque Jebel Mara. Her Arab Muslim friend, who was killed by rebels in the south, planted this dream in her heart before he died in the Islamic jihadist war in the city of Taurat. It was her Dinka Christian friend, Malwell, who came from America to fulfill this dream. What happened between the two lovers on their first wedding night is beyond description. The two thirsty souls were able to drink from the spring of their love, and their thirst was quenched. Finally, they were able to eat the forbidden apple fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. However, God did not cast them out of the Garden of Eden because they did not allow Satan to tempt them and make them disobey their Creator, have sex, and commit adultery before holy Christian marriage. The two Christian lovers were married to a priest in a Catholic church in El Fasher City. The next morning, the Azanda bride, Olivia, and her Dinka groom, Malwal, woke up feeling like different people. The sun of the new morning has risen on two souls united in a holy matrimonial Christian union. Their honeymoon began that day. Then they traveled to Jebel Mara and lived among unique people. At this high altitude of the majestic mountain, people became equal. There is no difference between Tia and Abdullah, the slave girl Ikhlas and her master Imam Abdul Razak, the African and the Arab, the southerner and the northerner, the Muslim and the Christian, and the slaves and their masters in the open air. When visitors climbed the high mountain, all these social, class, racial, religious, and ethnic barriers that separated them were removed. The newly married couple, Malwal and Olivia, enjoyed the most wonderful week of their lives. When their wonderful honeymoon ended, they returned to El Fasher. They decided to take the train from El Fasher city to the city of Kosti, and from there they would board a ship that would sail them south to the city of Juba. Their plan is to travel from Juba to Nairobi, in Kenya, and from there, Malwal will obtain a visa for his beautiful Azanda bride, Olivia, and they will travel together to their new residence in the United States of America and live happily ever after. But unfortunately, things did not go as planned by the happy newly wedded Christian couple. Chapter 37. The beginning of the trial of the African slave girl and her Arab master. After their return to the city of El Fasher from the wonderful honeymoon they spent in Jebel Mara, which represents the most beautiful tourist area in Sudan, the newlyweds remembered the case of the enslaved Dinka girl, Ikhlas, and decided to attend her trial before resuming their happy journey to South Sudan and Kenya, and from there flying to the New World and settling in America. It was the Azanda bride, Olivia, who insisted that they attend the trial of the adulterous imam who enslaved, impregnated a southern girl, and fathered an illegitimate daughter without marrying her. They decided to appoint a lawyer to defend the so-called Jaria, or slave, before the criminal court. In her short message to them, which she sent through the Baramilo man, Mr. Tia, Ikhlas had told Malwal and Olivia that she was poor and an orphan girl, with no family or shelter. Therefore, the two lovers decided to hire a lawyer on her behalf to defend her case in criminal court. They do not trust Arab judges, lawyers, or jurors to bring justice to an African girl who has been wrongfully held as a slave for many years in the home of the imam of the city's largest mosque. For this reason, they went to a lawyer originally from South Sudan, who is neither Arab nor Muslim, but an African Christian. Whatever the financial cost of his pleas for the southern enslaved girl Ikhlas, they decided to cover it. Under pressure from the central government, the trial was postponed to a working day rather than a public holiday like Friday. The government wanted to reduce the number of attendees, to avoid any social problems and ethnic conflicts that might be caused by angry shamashas from African tribes against Arab tribes. In addition, a small hall was allocated for the court to conduct its sessions. It was announced in advance that once the hall was full, the doors would be closed. Citizens who failed to enter the courtroom must return home and watch the trial on their televisions or hear it on their radios. Mr. Al-Dali, the representative who brought the case to court, appointed a lawyer to defend the enslaved girl, Ikhlas, and tried to discredit the arguments of the legal representative of the adulterous imam. This time, the criminal court informed the Dinka girl, Ikhlas, of the necessity of her presence, and that without her the trial would not take place. Maulana objected, saying that he would not allow his slave girl to appear before men in court and speak because she is Aura, or a naked female, and her voice is also naked, as Islam defines her as a woman. Aura in Islamic law means a naked woman. The Prophet of Islam said, "A woman is Aura," meaning she is naked even if she is covered by an abaya or veiled in niqab. He said that her voice is audacious, and that is why she is not supposed to appear in front of men or talk to them. According to the Islamic Encyclopedia, the word aura means the internal genital organs of a person, especially a woman. In plain words, from head to toe, a woman walks and talks like a pussy, and hence she must be hidden with abaya and niqab or burqa. As the Prophet of Islam said, a woman comes in the form of the devil and turns away in the form of Satan. As the messenger also said, if a woman leaves her house, Satan will come to her and be her host. For these religious reasons, the Imam refused to honor his naked southern slave girl by attending the trial, appearing before the men, filming her with the cameras on TV, and hearing her voice on the radio. However, the criminal court rejected the Imam's religious excuse and threatened to use force to bring the enslaved Dinka girl to court through law enforcement officers. When he failed to prevent his sexual maid, Ikhlas, from appearing before the criminal court, Imam Abdul Razak prevented her lawyers from contacting her in the precincts of his holy abode. Indeed, without her knowledge, 2 lawyers, Arab and African, were appointed to defend her in court. The plaintiff, Mr. Al-Dali, appointed the first lawyer, the Arab Muslim, and the newly married lovers, Mawal and Olivia, appointed the second lawyer, the African Christian. Against his wishes, Maulana Abdul Razak was appointed an Arab Muslim lawyer by his son-in-law, Sayyid al-Sab, who married one of his daughters. The arrogant Imam said he could defend himself, but his terrorist brother-in-law doubted his claims and appointed a lawyer for him against his wishes. On the appointed day, the newly married lovers, Mawal and Olivia, came to the criminal court building before sunrise and stood in an extensive line. Shortly after their arrival, the court doors opened and people began to storm the hall. The newlywed lovers were lucky enough to get 2 seats in the first row of seats. They waited for 4 hours before the trial began at 10 a.m. A few minutes before the trial, the Imam accused of adultery, rape, and slavery and his legal representative entered the court, followed by a beautiful southern girl in the prime of her youth. Were it not for his legal robes, Mawal and Olivia might have mistaken the legal representative for the adulterous Imam himself. The lawyer has a long beard and wears a black abaya that makes him look like an ISIS terrorist. He holds a staff in his right hand, as Maulana did, and a green copy of the Holy Quran in his left hand. They both hold prayer beads in their hands. Their religious appearances reminded the newlyweds of some of the bearded terrorist faces of the Islamic Caliphate of ISIS that they saw from time to time on television channels in America and Sudan. Although the entire body of the enslaved Dinka girl was covered by the Islamic abaya and veil like an onion, her face still revealed her beauty and youth. In her big, beautiful eyes the audience can see oppression and suffering. Ikhlas walked behind the Imam, carrying their daughter Sakina on her shoulder. Although Mawal and Olivia have never seen the enslaved girl before, they know it must be her. They fixed their eyes on her exquisite beauty. Her big eyes sparkle like stars on a dark night. Her black skin shone thanks to the cosmetic oils of Massage Kamra and Dilka that she rubbed on her body and face. Her lips are slightly larger than average. She is tall and has a sexy hot body. Although her body is covered by the Islamic abaya, hijab, and Sudanese sari, they can see the shape of her large buttocks and extremely high breasts. Her sari top is blue and decorated with golden silk embroidery. She looked nervous and afraid. The lovers are able to penetrate her fears and tension and find out what she was like before she fell into slavery. She looked like the daughter of a great chief, or a big sultan in the south of Sudan. Her beautiful eyes still reveal memories of her golden days, when she was among her people and free like a young gazelle. Those days of pride and honor now hide beneath the layers of slavery and sexual abuse she endured for so long in the home of the Imam of the Grand Mosque. She looks scared now, like a girl who doesn't trust everyone around her. A policewoman directed her to a chair near Maulana Abdul Razak al-Mahdi. Even after being forced to sit close to her abuser, she continued to look down, like a bride being introduced to dance for her groom in front of an audience. Not a happy bride, but like an underage girl forced to marry an old man worse than the Antichrist. The eyes of the newly married lovers filled with tears when they saw a beautiful African girl sitting next to an Arab man who claimed to be her master and owner, and he was the same age as her grandfather. Was this the case when the Prophet Muhammad was 54 years old and sitting next to his child bride or his underage wife Aisha, who was 6 years old when he married her, and 9 years old when he started having sex with her? Chapter 38. Applying Islamic taqiyya in the criminal court in a Muslim country. The slavery trial began with the reading of a summary of the formal accusation in the case filed against the suspect, Maulana Abdul Razak Al-Mahdi, the Imam of the Grand Mosque. The lawsuit mentioned the same charges that Mr. Al-Dali had previously filed before the Sharia court against the adulterous Imam, Abdul Razak Al-Mahdi. Everything read in the summary is information known to the public. The criminal judge then asked the Imam's lawyer to present his defense. Everyone in the court was surprised when they saw the large green file that the lawyer took out of his briefcase, which looked like a container's briefcase to everyone present. The file appears larger than the book of the Holy Quran, which the Imam still holds in his hand. The public worried that the lawyer might read the entire massive file. They may prefer to hear the entire Holy Quran recited, instead of having that huge file read to them in the courtroom. Then the lawyer came forward and stood between the jury and the audience. Before opening his green file, the lawyer thanked God Almighty, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, his blessed companions, the 4 rightly guided caliphs who ruled after the alleged messenger of God had died, and all the descendants of the leaders of Islam and the scholars and Muslims who followed them in the long history of Islam. Then he opened his huge file, his big mouth, and began to read aloud to the court. Your Honor, the judge, your respectable jurymen, and all who follow the guidance of the light of Islam here. I have many things to read to you today, but before that I would like to ask God Almighty and His infallible messenger, our noble Prophet Muhammad, to make everything I say clear and understandable. My Lord, expand my breast for me, and make my affairs easy for me, and loosen a knot from my tongue, so that they may understand my speech. I know that many people in this court have little knowledge of the laws of this Muslim country. I thank God that most of the distinguished attendees in this hall are Muslims and understand their beautiful religion, Islam, which is the religion of peace. I have no doubt that the presiding judge and the jurymen are well versed in the Holy Quran, the hadiths of the Prophet, Islamic Sharia, and the laws of this country. The lawyer stopped, went towards the judge, took the cup of water, which had been placed in front of His Honor, and took a quick sip from it. He thanked God and His messenger again, then went back to his first place. The whole audience continued to look at His Excellency, waiting to see if the lawyer was supposed to drink from the same cup from which His Majesty had drunk a few minutes before. When no sign of annoyance appeared on his face, the audience turned their attention to the intrusive lawyer. The story of the blessed Imam of the largest mosque in this city, Maulana Abdul Razak Wad Al-Mahdi, opposite this young Dinka woman named Ikhlas, seems to everyone who heard it like a story from the past, which we learned in ancient history books or studied in Islamic religious lessons in schools when we were students. None of us would have expected before today that such a story would involve real people. Well, it happened, and the people involved in this current story are here, sitting among us in this courtroom. The lawyer waved towards the area where the adulterous Imam and his slave girl, Ikhlas, were sitting. Stories like these, which we read in school, were not judged to be illegal, immoral, or criminal acts that should be punished. Why did we not condemn such practice? Because it is permissible in Islam, and the heavenly religions before it, Judaism and Christianity, for a man to sleep with his slaves without marrying them. Islam does not forbid a Muslim man to have intercourse with slave girls of the right-hand possession, no matter how many they are. Our infallible Prophet, Muhammad, the master of creation, and the last messenger of Allah, and sent as a mercy to the worlds, did this with his slave girls. His venerable companions and the rightly guided 4 caliphs did it, and Muslim men did it until the 20th century. For this reason, the Sharia court was unable to convict my client Al-Imam Al-Fadil. If they had condemned him, they would have first condemned the Prophet of Islam himself, who began this blessed sunnah when he slept with his Christian maid, Maria the Copt, without marrying her. The judge had to interrupt this long religious speech by leaning forward, rapping his gavel on the table, and saying, "Could you please make it brief, and get straight to the main issue? Please remember that in this criminal court, we do not judge the suspect according to what the Holy Quran said, or what the infallible Prophet did, but we follow Sudanese law, and anyone who violates this law will be tried accordingly." The lawyer and his client were anticipating such a confrontation, and were therefore well prepared for it in advance. The lawyer said with a big smile on his face, Well, I knew that eventually the court would raise the issue of Sudanese secular law versus Islamic Sharia law. My client and I know that in this secular court, Sharia law has no influence. We also know that this court follows Sudanese law derived from British law, Indian law, and some ancient African norms and customs that existed before Islam invaded this land. Therefore, I would be a fool to accept a case that I cannot defend in this secular criminal court. I'll be brief and get straight back to the main question. First, what the lawsuit against the defendant stated is false. It is not true that the Imam of the largest mosque in this city, Maulana Abdul Razak al-Mahdi, who is the grandson of the awaited Mahdi of God, Muhammad Ahmed al-Mahdi, the righteous and pious man, made the southern girl Ikhlas pregnant outside the sanctity of the bond of Islamic marriage, which is permissible according to the Book of God, the Quran, and the Sunnah of his noble messenger, our Master Muhammad, the best prayers and peace be upon him. She was his legal wife when he slept with her, and she is his spouse to this moment. The judge put down his gavel and waited for the lawyer to explain his shocking new statement. Some people in the audience raised their bodies a few inches above their seats, and shook themselves to make sure what they were seeing and hearing was real. The lawyer continued in a loud voice, "This girl, who was a Christian from the Dinka tribe, has a father named Mr. Majok Deng. He is also a southern Christian, but he converted to Islam at the feet of Maulana Abdul Razak. This daughter was called Susan when she lived with her father and her Christian family. Mr. Majok Deng's daughter also converted to Islam along with her father. After converting from Christianity to Islam, both father and daughter changed their first Christian names to the Islamic names Abdullah and Ikhlas. Mr. Abdullah Deng is a great sultan in South Sudan, and has huge wealth. He has more than 200,000 cows, countless numbers of livestock, and many other wealth such as palaces, houses, farms, gold, jewelry, and diamonds. He had 99 Christian wives and countless children and grandchildren. After he converted to Islam, he decided to release all of these women and keep only 4 wives, which is what a Muslim man is permitted to have under the Sharia law of God and his messenger Muhammad. When he converted to Islam, some leaders of other Christian tribes in the land of the Dinka heard of his conversion to Islam, so they decided to punish him by confiscating all his wealth. This evil conspiracy reached the ears of Mr. Abdullah Deng, while he was then learning to memorize the Holy Quran in the largest mosque in the city of El Fasher. He decided to return to the south immediately and fight these evil infidel leaders who stole his cows and property. He might die as a Muslim martyr in his war against the infidels. He was not sure whether he would win the battle or not. But as a brave man with high moral principles, he was determined to return to his country and reclaim what was his. Before his passing, Mr. Abdullah Deng had kept his daughter Ikhlas with the blessed Imam Abdul Razak as a trust hanging around his neck. In the event that he was killed, or his return was delayed, the father asked Maulana to do what he thought was good for his daughter, Ikhlas Abdullah Deng. At first, Maulana took the daughter Amana, or trust, to his holy abode and treated her as one of his own daughters. For a long time, Father Abdullah Deng did not return, and did not send a message to Maulana. Over time, the Honorable Imam saw some good qualities in the Christian Dinka girl, who had become a Muslim, so he decided to marry her according to the Holy Book of God, and the sacred Sunnah of his noble Prophet. But since he has 4 wives, Islamic law does not allow him to do so. He consulted his first wife, Khadija bint al-Ajab, who was incredibly old at the time, and had lost her desire for men. This virtuous wife lived with the blessed Imam as his wife for a long time, and found it difficult to separate from him. Just as the wife Sauda bin Zama asked her husband, the Prophet Muhammad, to protect her and dedicated her night to his young wife, Aisha, so this old wife asked our Lord to keep her in his house and dedicated her night to his teenage wife, Ikhlas. However, she made her loving Imam husband swear to her on the Holy Quran that he would not reveal her divorce to any of his other wives who were her rival co-wives. This is because she thought that the rest of the harmful wives would be happy about her divorce, and would make fun of her husband abandoning her in her old age. My client, a man with a big, compassionate heart and dignity, accepted the deal, keeping it a secret between himself, his divorced wife, and God. Here is a copy of the marriage contract with me in my bag, and in this court, I will now present the 3 witnesses who ratified the Islamic marriage contract, and added their signatures to it as Muslim witnesses. The blessed Imam knew that Islam requires 2 witnesses to conclude a marriage, but he decided to have 3 witnesses because he wanted to ensure the validity of his marriage to his young Dinka Muslim bride, Ikhlas Abdullah Dang. Chapter 39. Presentation of the 3 witnesses for the halal Islamic marriage. What the Muslim lawyer has said so far about the defendant is called taqiyya in Islam. Islamic law in taqiyya is based on the Quranic verses in Surah Al-Imran 3, verse 28 and Surah An-Nahl 16, verse 106, in which it is permissible for a Muslim man to lie in certain situations: 1. If his life is in danger. 2. If he lives in a country of infidels where Islam is not the main religion. 3. If he is brought before a secular court in which Islamic Sharia laws are not applied. In any situation when Islamic laws and non-Islamic laws such as secularism or man-made laws conflict, a Muslim man is allowed to practice taqiyya. The law of taqiyya actually aims to respect the law of God and His Messenger Muhammad, and gives open permission to Muslims to lie to infidels, hypocrites, and apostates from Islam. This is exactly what the Imam of the largest mosque and his Muslim lawyer did in the criminal court, where Sharia law has no weight but derives its laws from secular law established by the infidel British colonialist. The judge said with a sarcastic laugh, well, if this is exactly what happened, then why did the accused lie to the public and to the Sharia court? Is it because he wanted to honor and reward his first wife for her loyalty and extended stay with him? That's one reason, but it's not the main reason, the lawyer said, raising his hand as if he were in a classroom. He kept his hand in the air for a long time, and looked around to make sure every pair of eyes were focused on him. The main reason is that the Imam of the largest mosque in the city, Maulana Abdul Razak Wad Mahdi Allah the Awaited, wants to glorify Islam, the religion of peace, love, and heavenly justice, and also revive the blessed Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, may God's prayers and peace be upon him. May God bless his family and his blessed descendants. He wants to show the Islamic nation or Muslim community today that we live in a time when Islam has become weak, and the law of God and His Messenger has been ignored, while the man-made laws of the Western infidels and Hindu polytheists were invented by non-Muslims and brought to Sudan by the European British in this Muslim country. Those secular laws of infidels and atheists still govern Muslims to this day. And he wants to stop. The judge shouted, raising his right hand and closing his eyes. Please stop. If you want to finish your religious sermon, please go to the Grand Mosque. The court must verify what you said regarding the marriage contract between the accused Imam Abdul Razak al-Mahdi and the girl Ikhlas Abdullah Dang. The judge waited a while before lowering his hand and opening his eyes. When he was sure that the lawyer's voice had been silenced, he continued speaking. The court calls on Mrs. Ikhlas Abdullah Dang to come forward and confirm or deny what was said about her alleged marriage to Maulana Abdul Razak. When the girl Ikhlas stood up, calm prevailed in the court. One only hears the noise of flies moving from one person to another. Meanwhile, the southern Dinka girl shivered and sweated as she stood before the judge and jury. She was unable to open her mouth to speak until the judge led her into a short question-and-answer session. Did you know that you were legally married to Imam Abdul Razak before he slept with you? The girl, Ikhlas, said in a deep voice, yes, I knew that. The judge repeated the question again and asked her to answer it louder. When she answered in the affirmative, he asked her another question. Were you treated as a married woman or a slave in Maulana's house? As a married woman. Were you forced to marry the imam of the mosque, or did you marry of your own free will? My free will. Meanwhile, Ikhlas stood upright like a tree, her face pale. Were you forced to convert to Islam? The judge lowered his glasses and stared into the young southern woman's face. I was not forced to convert from Christianity to Islam. The judge has run out of questions. Where is your father now? In the south. By this time grumbling had begun to spread throughout the courtroom among the audience. The judge raised his voice and said, Thank you, Mrs. Ikhlas Abdullah Dang. You can return to your seat. The judge waited until the Dinka girl returned to her seat, then said, The door is now open for the other two lawyers to present their arguments and their case. The northern lawyer, also an Arab Muslim man, rose to his feet and said, I have prepared more than 30 pages to challenge this case. But the defense attorney invalidated in one fell swoop everything I wrote and prepared. If it is true that Imam Abdul Razak al-Mahdi married the daughter of Mr. Abdullah Dang, Ikhlas, then I have no choice but to sit down and keep my mouth shut. Before I do that, I ask the court to summon the three witnesses and ask them to confirm the credibility of the halal Islamic marriage contract. Will the three witnesses come and confirm the marriage contract by oath, said the chief judge. The Imam's adulterer's son-in-law, the terrorist politician and member of parliament, Mr. Al-Saab, and other citizens attended the courtroom as the three witnesses. What caught the attention of the audience and made them laugh was the appearance of the two other witnesses who accompanied Mr. Al-Saab, the son-in-law of the accused Imam. One of them appeared to have been dead for many years, and people exhumed his body before bringing him to the courtroom. He probably lived for nearly a century, and was still reeling along, supported by the other two. His human crutches were clinging to his arms for fear that he would fall at any moment and return again to his eternal death. His five senses and mental strength stopped working a long time ago, and he is a senile, deaf, and dumb old man. Even though his body was supported like a dilapidated old hut by the other two witnesses, he was about to fall over at any moment. The other two witnesses supported him in fear and extreme caution, fearing that he would melt from their hands, fall to the ground, break his neck, and die. Then the court would consider him a living human being and hold them responsible for premeditated murder. He has eyes but cannot see, he has ears but cannot hear, he has a nose but cannot smell, he has 2 legs but cannot walk, and he has a mind but cannot think. He's like a dumb, lifeless statue. The third witness appears to be a more fun and interesting character to the audience than the other two witnesses. Everyone knew who he was, and everyone laughed when they saw him. He works as a false witness in a criminal court and Sharia court. Every day, this man visits both courts and stands outside their gates ready to be employed as a false witness. If a woman needed a witness to bear false witness against her neighbor, he would do that duty at the right price. If a man covets someone's donkey and takes it, that man can testify and swear by the Book of God, the Holy Quran, that the donkey was born and raised in the thief's house. These 3 false witnesses placed their right hands on the Holy Quran and testified to the validity of the marriage contract. Mr. Al-Saab raised the second witness's weak, trembling, fleshy hand and placed it on the Holy Quran. Then someone shouted on his deaf ear, "Did you witness the marriage of Imam Abd al-Razak al-Mahdi and the daughter of Abdullah Deng, Ikhlas?" He made a gesture with his large, bald, square head, and the court deemed it approving. Being the main imam of the Grand Mosque and a legally recognized religious leader, Maulana Abdul Razak, the grandson of Imam Muhammad Ahmed al-Mahdi, said he was Almazan who performed the marriage with his Dinka Muslim bride, Ikhlas Abdullah Deng. He also claimed that he was her legal guardian and married her to himself because her father most likely died as a martyr in his war against the immoral infidel Christians in southern Sudan. In other words, the imam became three in one: the groom, his bride's guardian, and the official mazun of the legal, permissible halal Islamic marriage between the groom and the bride. Chapter 40. Incredible Pieces of Evidence. When the three false witnesses confirmed the sham marriage contract, the northern Muslim lawyer sat down and kept his mouth shut as he promised. The judge then called the southern Christian lawyer and asked him to submit his objections, if he had any. When the southern lawyer stands, the audience is dazzled by his appearance. He is 7 feet tall but weighs less than 40 kilograms. He looks like a walking skeleton, wearing a black suit and a thin white tie hanging around his neck like a noose. He has no stomach or buttocks, and carries most of his weight on his long legs. At first, the audience mistakenly thought he was walking on stilts in a parade like those who use long sticks and walk on them at the festival. In 2 steps he reached the judge's table, another step might have brought him behind the jurors. He turned, faced the crowd, and stood empty-handed in front of the court. He carries nothing with him except his long hands. He must have spent most of his life researching university books while studying at the College of Law, because his eyes are covered by 2 large, heavy glasses, each one like the bottom of a cup. Instead of speaking, he smiled. The surprise of his smile made the audience laugh. Then he extended his long arms, brought his hands together, and began to clap. The audience is confused, and some of them applaud him without knowing why they are applauding. Like a train slowly starting to move at a steadily increasing speed, the applause grew in volume until it nearly deafened the judge. His Majesty hit his table with gravel several times to restore order. As soon as silence prevailed, the judge addressed the southern lawyer. "Can you explain to us, my honorable sir, the reason for your happiness?" The southern lawyer said with a smile, "Because, Your Honor, I have nothing to say after I heard the new developments in the case. So I decided to keep my mouth shut and keep those buttocks glued to my chair." While he was saying these words, he put his hands on his buttocks. The audience laughed for not any specific reason other than his obvious absence of buttocks. But he said, then stopped and pointed to his ear with one finger, indicating that his audience, the judge, and the jury members needed to listen carefully to what he had to say. But the Christian lawyer repeated again, "The beautiful Azanda girl sitting over there." Then he pointed the same finger at Olivia, who felt the looks of each pair of eyes on her, felt embarrassed, and looked down. When he whispered a secret into this ear, he put his finger into his left ear again to show the portal through which the secret passed from Olivia's pretty lips to his little ear. Before we resume talking about the southern lawyer and the court case, it should be noted that some African tribes in Sudan face a fundamental problem when they speak Arabic. They always refer to the girl as male and to the boy as female. Because he is southern and Arabic is not his mother tongue, the lawyer, Mr. Akal, suffers from this grammatical problem. When he wants to talk about a girl, he calls her he as if she were a man, and when he talks about a boy he says she as if he were a woman. He also handed me this tape recording, and this paper containing a brief message. As if by the magic of a skilled magician, a cassette tape and a piece of paper appeared in his empty hand. The audience gasped. I started shaking in my chair like that. The audience exploded in raucous laughter as the southern lawyer arched his back and began shaking his flat ass. The judge and jury are in a better position to see the shaking. They are forced to laugh against their better judgment. When he realized that his jiggling amused the judge, jury, and audience, the African lawyer shuddered even more and laughed at his dancing. In the midst of the fun, the judge slammed his gavel on the table again to keep the laughter from the courtroom. The audience stopped laughing loudly but continued to shake in silent amusement. The Christian lawyer smiled broadly and said, "Today, in the same way, I will shake Maulana and his lawyer in this way." Once again, he bent his back and started shaking his waist in a break-dancing style, as if he were Elvis Presley or John Travolta dancing in the famous Hollywood movie Saturday Night Fever. This time, he extended his fists and moved his hands as well. Some of the spectators screamed with laughter until their eyes filled with tears of joy. Others fell from their seats and clutched their stomachs from the pain of laughing so much. It is remarkably interesting to watch him dance in court, all the while looking directly at the accused Imam Maulana. "Lawyer Mr. Akal, please get straight to the point," the judge shouted, still laughing. The judge has to shout his request several times before Mr. Akal stops the break dancing. The southern lawyer, who had been moving like a famous dancer, suddenly fell silent and stood still like a statue. His face hardened with anger and determination. Raising his hand, Mr. Akal said, "If this girl had a father named Mr. Abdullah Deng, he would not have written this letter to Mr. Malwal and his wife Olivia, and recorded the same letter in his voice on this cassette." The two pieces of evidence appeared on his hands like banners. The audience was not confused about the form of his mail and exchange, such as he into her, and she into him, because most of the African tribes in Sudan speak Arabic in this way. For the remainder of the trial, these errors must be corrected to avoid confusion. We will act as grammar checkers in typing on the computer and reverse the order of the feminine and masculine. Mr. Akal waited until he was sure everyone had seen the cassette and the paper. He then moved forward to stand near the enslaved Dinka girl and her alleged master, Imam Abdul Razak al-Mahdi, before continuing his speech. "I will only quote and cite what Ikhlas wrote in her letter and also recorded in her cassette to Mr. Malwal and his wife, Mrs. Olivia. I am an orphan girl. The Arab Muslim Janjaweed killed my father, 2 brothers, and my little sister before my eyes in South Sudan. They kidnapped me from my village and forcibly brought me to this western region. I have no home, no family, no relatives, or anyone else alive in Sudan to take care of me." The Christian lawyer, Mr. Akal, continued in a loud voice, "Now, if this girl had a father alive, she would not call herself an orphan girl. She would not say that the Arab Muslim Janjaweed slaughtered her parents and siblings before her eyes. Furthermore, this letter revealed that she had been kidnapped from the south and brought to this city by force by her captors. In other words, she has been raped, beaten, sold as a slave, and abused by the Arab Janjaweed, and now by this Arab old man who claims to be a righteous follower of God and the main imam of the largest mosque in the city." The Christian advocate, Mr. Akal, focused his gaze on the Maulana's bearded face to deliver his final comments. "He is a man of Satan, and will spend eternity in hell like the Antichrist if the court allows my strong words." The accused imam's Muslim lawyer shouted, "Objection, Your Honor." "What is your objection?" The judge replied. His face is tight and red. Maulana's lawyer raised his client's handcuffed hands. "Before Mr. Akal makes any assumptions, the court must verify the allegations of the written letter and the recorder's fidelity tape. Most importantly, the provocative southerner, Lawyer Akal, should watch his words and refrain from insulting my defendant in the future." The Christian lawyer said, "Whether the Dinka girl, Ikhlas, admits or denies that the recording tape and the written message were hers, this will not change the existence of sound evidence if it is true. I know her life is in danger. I can see the fear written on her face." Mr. Akal then added, "The court should find an expert to verify her handwriting and voice message if Ikhlas refuses to acknowledge this fact." The judge said loudly, the court will grant full protection to the Southern girl, Ikhlas Abdullah Deng, if it is true that her life is threatened. When he heard the promise of protection to the victim of slavery and rape, Mr. Akal took quick steps towards the so-called legitimate Muslim wife of the adulterous imam and placed the paper in her hand. Could you please read this paper and tell the court whether you wrote it in your own handwriting or not? Mr. Akal asked sincerely, his face solemn. The Dinka girl took the paper with trembling hands and glanced at it quickly. Did you write this letter, or did you not write it? The judge asked, his voice echoing in the courtroom. The court was now silent. One could hear a pin drop. Yes, I wrote it, the Southern girl replied, stammering. Do you admit in court that what you wrote on the paper is the truth? The judge continued. Yes, this is the truth. Suddenly, the room buzzed with excited voices. Who would have thought all this? The judge shouted, the court is postponed until the next session. Maulana's Muslim defense lawyer shouted, wait a minute, guys, and before the judge gave him permission, he said, can Ikhlas tell the court why she lied to the court in her first testimony? Everyone looked at the Dinka girl to hear her explanation. She burst into tears, put her hands over her mouth, frowned, and shook her head to object to the embarrassing question. The judge took up his gavel and looked for a moment as if he might throw it at the stupid defense attorney, but instead, he slammed the table and shouted, I said, court is adjourned. No further questions or objections may be raised until the next hearing.